and I am not nearly as good as whoever wrote that book to make something out of it. So let's just get into it. Draftmas Eve, indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Gold Zone, our final show before the NFL draft. Of course, we'll be back after the Packers take 3 receivers with their first 3 picks in this year's class. Welcome to the show, guys. I'm your host. I am Jacob Westendorf, live in the Game On Wisconsin studios, as I always am. And I am joined by my much more handsome namesake, my counterpart, my friend, my confidant, Jacob Morley. Jacob, doing some... you know what? I'm not going to make that joke of what you were doing pre-show because it's probably not suitable for work. But what's up? How are we doing?
Man, I'm good. We made it. We did it. We're here. There are 2 days in the draft process for me that are just like, whew. One is when the draft guide's done. Like that is just like a big whew. And then like from now until the draft, like it's just like, man, it is here. We are all sick and tired of speculating, of talking about the same scenarios just recycled over and over again in a cyclical way. And we are like just ready for like, just give me the names and I want to talk about those guys. Kent, how are you feeling? Can you relate?
Oh, I can super relate. And a very Merry Draftmas to all of you. I'm very excited to be here hanging out with you. Super relieved. You guys crushed the Green Bay draft guide. It was awesome. And I am just very much looking forward to the results. We are literally like we're 23 hours and 58 minutes away, boys. We're right there. We're right on the cusp.
Right there, right on the cusp before we got a few things. We got a quick question. So Kent is a Chiefs fan and does cover the Chiefs. That is how that works. So Kent relates to us. He understands what it's like to have an elite team with an elite quarterback that pisses down his leg in big moments and maybe loses a game or two that doesn't. All
right, guys, we'll see you later.
Hey, I wouldn't say anything if I hadn't lived it for the last 15 years myself. So it's a great life to live, and I look forward to seeing what's going on with Kansas City here in the next couple of years. But Kansas City and Green Bay, actually, an interesting scenario for both of them, just because they're both in a similar-ish situation. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers is a little bit older than Patrick Mahomes is, but 2 first-round picks.
A little bit.
Just a
little bit.
Hey,
just a scotch.
12 years. Who's counting?
Both guys, but they both traded their top receiver this year. Tyreek Hill is now famously a Miami Dolphin, so the Chiefs will pick 29th and 30th in this year's class. The Packers 22nd and 28 in this year's class. So just really briefly, Kent, where do you think, because Kansas City is a team a lot of people are looking at as like somebody that could snipe someone Green Bay wants. And it makes some sense. Andy Reid obviously is from Green Bay, obviously eons ago at this point, but he was from Green Bay, kind of understands that philosophy. Brett Veach has done a really good job since being in Kansas City. What do you think, or what's the pulse you're getting on what maybe their strategy is going to be as we get into? Are they sticking and picking? Are they going to move both of those guys and try and get into the top 15? What are we thinking there?
I mean, I think all bets are everything's on the table for this team, honestly. And I think that probably similarly echoes the sentiment you guys have. And honestly, I think it's the same positions. Like we're looking and a lot of people are saying, hey, the Packers and the Chiefs are the 2 teams that are going to trade up or are looking to trade up or could potentially trade up. They have the ammo. And I think both Packers and Chiefs are probably looking at receiver and pass rush too. I mean, I think there are probably some situations here where, the Chiefs and the Packers are pitted up against each other a little bit. And so, I mean, we're closely monitoring the Packers in Chiefs Kingdom. And I'm sure you guys, like you kind of mentioned, are kind of monitoring the Chiefs too, as, teams that could potentially be jockeying for the same players. It's going to be very interesting because both teams are in very similar situations. I mean, even their quarterbacks are in the same commercials. So
yeah, we can't ever get them to play against each other.
No,
like they can never be in the same game for whatever.
Jake from State Farm was in KC.
Yes.
They had a bunch of events going for the State Farm Bowl that didn't happen. It was incredible. They should have just snuck Jordan Love into a commercial real quick just so they still could have ran with the same theme.
We have so our social media manager actually used to work for State Farm, and she lives in close to that area, not quite in that area, but she said there is so much marketing material they just had to dump on Tuesday afternoon. It was like, hey, by the way, 12's got COVID. So that's not going to happen.
Thanks a lot, Aaron. Thanks for nothing. Dude, what I think is interesting for both these teams too, and the name that keeps getting thrown around as like a guy that could potentially slip, and is Kayvon Thibodeaux. Mm-hmm. And I think that is a guy that both the Packers and Chiefs would be monitoring closely to say like, hey, 11, 12, 13, if he's there, like what kind of package can you put together? And I think the Packers and the Chiefs would be those two teams that's like, okay, well, who can outbid the other team? And because their draft capital is really close too. Like the Packers, like I think they have more because they've got the higher first round picks. So they could probably outgun the Chiefs if they wanted to, but they would have to want to. You know, that's the interesting part is like they would have to give up a lot to go up and get a guy like that. And I would be over the moon with a guy like that. And I think Chiefs fans would be it too, because that's someone throughout the whole process that no one has really talked about outside of like the what ifs, what if he falls? What if he slides a little bit? And as we get closer to it, it seems like it's realistic that he's going to be outside the top 10. Like there's a non-0% chance that he might be sitting there at 12. And so for these two teams, that might be the most interesting storylines. Is it might be like the who can trade up to get one of the, I mean, in my opinion, the top 3 players in this draft class. Is that might just be sitting there and you know, maybe it's just silly season guys. Maybe it's just stuff that people are trying to make him drop. I don't know. He could still go 4th, 3rd. I don't know. But where there's smoke, there's fire. And with him, it's not just been the last week. It hasn't just been like, oh yeah, all this stuff is happening 3 days before the draft. The echoes and the breadcrumbs have kind of been there the whole process. So,
all year, really, honestly, all year.
Well, I'll say this. You know, if we're talking about the Chiefs and the Packers pitting themselves up against each other for some of these players, Kayvon Thibodeaux, I do think is one of those guys that could be in play for the Chiefs in a possible trade up. I think that's about it. I think that might be as far as big moves that the Chiefs would make. It's for an edge rusher. It's one of those top 4 edge rushers that fall, and Kayvon Thibodeaux very obviously seems like the one that has a chance to. So if Thibodeaux gets outside of the top 10, I bet the Chiefs are considering that move. I would venture to say that they are considering that move. So that's going to get interesting in the bidding wars between the Packers and the Chiefs. I think the Packers are better positioned to make that move easily because they've got pick 22. But it's less appealing. You know, it's more appealing to fall back in a smaller, you know, fallback.
I'll say this though, the Chiefs have put themselves in a better position at their other needs, like receiver. Like the Chiefs have kind of done what I hope the Packers would have done at wide receiver, and it's go get a few mid-tier guys to pair with Travis Kelce. That with your all-world quarterback, you're still going to be fine. You know, so like if they do, but the Packers, on the other hand, they signed Sammy Watkins to a 1-year, not a prove it deal, but like not really even like a guaranteed you're going to make the roster type deal. And there is just a feeling that if Green Bay doesn't come out of the first 100 picks with 1 or 2 receivers, then what are we doing? You know, so that is kind of the thing. So it's like, they would have to temper like, okay, well, how much can we actually give up to go get this guy and still just ignore this other need, which the Packers have done that before, though. They've been like, hey, we'll figure that other part out because we can go get this stud.
Bad quarterback. You know? Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say that? That one? Okay. So a question that came through in here today, I had this, and this is something I have. So the Packers and Chiefs are one of a couple teams with 2 first-round picks. And like you mentioned, towards the latter half of the second round, or of the first round, excuse me. So the question I asked today is, of these players that are in this class, what players would you trade both of those picks to move up for? And, you know, for the Packers, 2 first gets them as high as like 7 or 8 based on the trade value chart. Maybe they throw in a little sweetener, you know, to get up into 5 if they wanted to do something like that. I can't personally picture them doing that, but maybe. To me, there's 2 players in this class that I would do that for. Aiden Hutchinson is one, and I don't think he's going to last nearly long enough for something like that. And Kayvon Thibodeaux is the other one. Those are the only ones for me. And I even get a little dicey on that just because my general rule of thumb is if I'm trading multiple first-round picks, it's for a quarterback. Because you look at like a couple years ago, the Chiefs made that draft day trade rather famously. They traded up with Buffalo, 2 firsts and a third, and they end up with Patrick Mahomes. Buffalo slides back. They don't have Patrick Mahomes. They have Josh Allen. He's pretty good, but they can't seem to get past the Mahomes fella for whatever reason.
13 seconds.
13, and that's still just incredible to me that was a thing. But it is.
Then they lost after that. Blame that.
I don't know. I got nothing on that. But my general rule is if you're doing that, it's got to be for a quarterback just because the impact just isn't going to be there. You look at like Khalil Mack was a defensive player of the year when the Bears traded for him. And they made the playoffs twice. They never won a playoff game while Khalil Mack was a Chicago Bear. It's just really hard to replicate that value of 2 first-round picks if that player doesn't play the most important position in football. That being said, Kent, I tell you the Chiefs traded 29 and 30 to move up to wherever that gets them. And admittedly, I haven't done the value.
It's roughly pick 8.
Okay,
so they could get a little bit back from Seattle if they did it at 9.
Gotcha. So 8 or 9. I tell you, they moved up to 8 or 9 with 29 and 30. You're telling me they better have picked who?
Thibodeaux, I think, is definitely on that list. Aiden Hutchinson, I don't think he's fallen that far. Trayvon Walker, I'll take. That might be the list, honestly. I don't.
What about do you like Jermaine Johnson enough?
Jermaine Johnson too. Yeah, Jermaine Johnson too. I think would be a good one. But I'm more excited about Thibodeaux than I am him. Trayvon Walker and Thibodeaux are two I'd be most excited about. I'm not optimistic about Thibodeaux. I don't want the Chiefs trading up for a receiver.
Right.
I think you can catch value in the top 50. They've got 3 picks in the top 50. I'd be fine settling for a Sky Moore or hopefully a George Pickens falling out of the first round and falling into the second round because of some concerns there. So there's not a big list of guys I'd be willing to trade up for. It's the edge position. Maybe the corners. You might be able to talk me into a corner if one of them fall. Derek Stingley. I mean, that would be exciting. But there's really not a ton of players. I think there's only a few that are blue chips, and I think that's what you got to do if you're going to go take 29 and 30 and move up.
Yeah, I think, and for the receiver position too, that's kind of where I'm at. Is I'd rather just wait and see. The Packers are in a little bit different position because their hands are kind of tied. Like they really need a guy. They need a dude, and to move up that much, there's no way they would trade both first to move up for a receiver. There's just not one worth it in this class, I don't think. So like you got the smaller move ups. I'd be fine with like a move up to 17 or 13 where you don't have to give up 2 first-round picks to move up and do that. But yeah, to move up to 6, if you're the Packers, to go get a receiver, oh man, I don't care who it is.
I will say this: if Gutekunst wasn't willing to do, and I agree with him for the record, and I say that knowing the benefit of hindsight even now, but if he wasn't willing to do that in 2020 for Justin Jefferson to move from 30 to 2020 is where they would have had to get to, and theoretically it would have taken them the next year's first-round pick. If he wasn't willing to do that for Justin Jefferson is wide receiver 1 in this class. And I think there's a decent margin between him and Chris Olave, Jameson Williams. George Pickens is who we got in the Green Bay draft guide, the Kansas City draft guide as well, which if you guys haven't gotten your hands on that, check the bottom line here. There's still time to do that. And there's a whole day's worth of reading tomorrow. So why not get yourself a chance to read and see what's going on with the Packers and get the KC one too. Those guys were nice enough to help us out and put this thing together. So support those guys as well. Kent, we're just about out of time and I do appreciate you stopping in. You can follow him on Twitter at Kent_Swanson. And we actually got you in for a show that we weren't talking about a shitty quarterback class like we had the first time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
So we get to do something like that. You're Brian Gutekunst. And I know I'm putting you on the spot. I'm asking you to do this without a simulator. So just be as realistic as you possibly can. Pick 22 and pick 28. You're leaving the first round with whom?
I would say Chris Olave. I think it's realistic at 22, and then George Karlaftis at 28. I think that's the move.
I would be more than thrilled with that first round.
Here's the thing. I'm not a huge Karlaftis guy, but if y'all snipe him at 28 before the Chiefs get a chance, I am going to be very upset.
You'll be the first person I message once I hear his name come across the bottom line.
It's going to happen.
There you go. So he's Kent Swanson. Follow him on Twitter at Kent_Swanson. Find his network, KC Sports Network. Grab their draft guide, grab ours. Kent, good luck tomorrow night, and Merry Draftmas.
Merry Draftmas, fellas.
That is Kent Swanson. Like I mentioned, you could follow him there at Kent_Swanson. Let's go to our next guest. Why waste any time? From Yahoo Sports tonight, the legend, as far as a superhero, I believe is what I just said, as far as I am concerned. Eric Edholm coming home from soccer dad duties, and his son is scoring goals at a pace that looks like Aaron Rodgers' touchdown passes in 2011. It really is just phenomenal. So if you want to bet on the next great soccer player for the United States World Cup team, little Edholm is your go-to there. Eric, welcome to the show. It's been a while. How are you, my friend?
Yeah, he's got a very hockey name, Henrik. You'd think that would be, he's a lefty too. So, I mean, we've got, baseball coming up. We've got, there's the potential is through the roof. It's unbelievable. How you fellas doing? You want to talk some draft?
That's kind of what you do for a living, isn't it? So for those of you that don't know Eric Edholm, I don't know why you wouldn't at this point, but that is right. He's our first guest tonight without a beard. I'm not sure why that is, but that is the case. He's the lead draft writer for Yahoo Sports, works with a lot of different people, had a lot of stuff today, had his own mock draft today. So we'll talk about some of the picks going on there. That's the last mock you're going to do, right? You're not putting one out tomorrow.
And here's the thing. I changed it once. I published it, and then immediately a call that I placed like 2 or 3 days ago came into me, and they're like, oh, no, that's not going to happen. Went to my editor, said, hey, do you mind if I change one pick? And then I got in there, sneaked in another change too. It was getting ugly for a minute. I just said, you know what? I'm hitting save. I'm closing out. I've heard 2 or 3 things since then that have shredded my mock up. So it's already ancient history, but yes, that is my final version.
So have you caught the Quay Walker stuff to, what was it? I think somebody reported earlier, Quay Walker doesn't get past New England. I think that was one of them.
Yeah, they're definitely a team that has looked hard at him and shit and stuff. I don't know what I can say on this.
You're totally fine.
Fuck it. Yeah, let it rip. So they're absolutely in on him. I think I gave them, who the heck did I give New England? I don't even remember at this point, but I put him 32 to the Lions as kind of a, I want to get him in the top 32. I don't know where he's going, but that's a possibility. I do think the one thing that scares me with him is the instincts, but boy, athletically, he's special. So yeah, there's a lot of surprising names who could enter that first round mix that I couldn't even get in.
Well, and speaking of which, Trey McBride is a name that is getting thrown around as a first round pick. Someone like Cincinnati and Tampa Bay have been super interested in him, and that's another name that's just kind of like, what? And so you get into this draft, and how crazy is it going to be? Because I feel like the last couple of years we've kind of been given the same song and dance of like, rip up your mocks, rip up your rankings. It's not going to be that way, and then it kind of is. And so this year, do you feel like that's another kind of just thing someone's saying, or do you really feel like this year it is kind of like, man, picks 8 to 32? Well, I don't know.
Yeah, and even I don't know how settled you guys are on 1 through 7. I mean, really,
no, right? Yeah.
So let me just throw a couple of crazy scenarios out there to set the table. Okay, most people have settled on Trayvon Walker at 1. May happen, may not. Who knows, right? The owner could technically trump that pick if he wanted. So Walker goes first. Do we know that Aiden Hutchinson is going second? I don't think we do. I mean, I think he could actually go to the Jets at 4. I mean, it's hard to know when you hear like a team is sort of focused on a guy, and sometimes I get stuff from the college or from, the players circle. Sometimes it comes from teams, so it depends on where I get the info from. But, I'd heard the Stingley to Houston talk for, a couple weeks now and was sitting on it because I kept thinking, I don't know, it doesn't really add up, but maybe, and then the more calls I made, that seemed real. Are they still stuck on him if Hutchinson somehow gets past the Lions? If Thibodeaux is the pick, let's say. Lions have done a lot of work on him. They went out there. They brought him to Detroit. They've thrown the kitchen sink at him. So, I don't know. I don't know which way Detroit goes, and then I don't know which way Houston goes. So I think even the top of the draft, and then as you guys pointed out, all the Trey McBride types and the other late round guys who normally would be mid-second rounders who could sneak in late. And then again, Eric Stokes might have been that guy last year, and he played really well last year. It's not like those picks can't exceed expectations or prove people wrong.
And that's how that works, right? Like that's all it takes is a run at a particular position and a human general manager to go like, man, we're picking 27th.
Right.
And we kind of like this guy in the 50s range, but there's already been 4 guys at this position taken, and we only really projected 2. So is he really going to be there later?
Yep.
That's why they kind of target guys and take them.
Yep.
I am not going to be surprised with anything at the top of the draft. I would say it's significant to some that Ike Ekwonu be the number 1 overall pick, but I'm just hoping for that for monetary purposes. Let's just leave things that way on that front. But that's what I have there. Otherwise, I could see a scenario like you mentioned where Trayvon Walker's 1 and Hutchinson's 4. I could see a scenario where Trayvon Walker's 1 and Hutchinson's 2, and then Kayvon goes like 10th or something like that. I mean, there's a lot of scenarios at play, and it feels like the turning point at that point is Kayvon, because like you said, would Houston take Hutchinson over Derek Stingley if that were to present itself? So that kind of makes some interest there. That was the guy we were talking about. Jake and I said earlier that if I were Green Bay, there was only 2 players for me that I would trade both of those first round picks for. And one of them was Thibodeaux and the other one was Hutchinson. And that was it. Maybe Trayvon, I don't know. I'm just not that wild about Trayvon. I think it's wild that he's going to be the first overall pick. That is just incredible to me that is the case. But it's just going to be interesting to see how this thing works, because then, if I did a simulation earlier where 2 quarterbacks went inside the top 6. Well, that meant I didn't have to trade up for, Chris Olave or Jameson Williams or one of these receivers, because now that pushes other players down the board. And let's go to the quarterback side of things, because your first quarterback, I believe, didn't go, and I have this up now, so forgive me if I butchered
19, I think. Is that right?
19 or 20. Yeah, Pittsburgh is where I thought, maybe New Orleans.
Yeah.
I'm trying to go through this now.
19,
Pittsburgh. New Orleans, and then Pittsburgh both take quarterbacks back to back. But that's the first 2. And that's wild, because normally quarterbacks get put, and this probably is pushing them up the board, but normally they get pushed up even higher than this. So what's your take on this quarterback class? And is that the reason that you think people like, this draft, it just doesn't have that dude in it, or it doesn't have the, it doesn't have the sex appeal that maybe last year's class had, because last year had Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields and all those guys?
Yeah, no, I think you start there, right? That's the position that, the March through April fans, people who just sort of tune in for the draft, once the season's over with, once the combine starts, or even maybe after the season's, once they know their team's out of contention. But I think a lot of people, start with the quarterbacks and then work their way down, maybe with their own team's needs or whatever. But yeah, I think it's actually just the sheer number of prospects this year is way bigger than last year because of COVID and guys taking the extra year eligibility and things like that. So, it's not a sexy prediction, but I think you'll see some undrafted free agents who are really good. But yeah, if we're just talking big picture, it's hard to get super excited about the group. And yet we have 5 that I think could end up going in the top 50-ish picks. Once there'll be a period of waiting, I think, because let's say 3 get in the first round, and then, you're not going to use a high second round pick on a quarterback usually, because you want to get the 5th-year option. You might as well just trade up 4 or 5 spots, whatever. But let's say Atlanta, Seattle, those are teams that I think could look at quarterback, and maybe Carolina can somehow swing a trade with the next year's pick if they love somebody there, whatever. But we have 5 quarterbacks who could end up in the first couple rounds. That's better than some years we've had in recent seasons. There just isn't that Lawrence guy. There isn't that Andrew Luck. There isn't that guy at the top. But yeah, overall, I think it's a solid draft depending on what position you're talking about. But I think that is sort of the fan view of, quarterbacks are so.
Well, and I think, for Packers fans as well, it's important to keep an eye on the quarterbacks, because even though they don't need one, they didn't need one a couple years ago either. But but even though they don't need one, like if, let's say, a huge pivot point at this draft could be like, what if Detroit goes crazy and takes a quarterback at 2? Yep. And then the run on those quarterbacks, like everybody's that wants a quarterback is then going to be like, well, maybe we don't wait on him. Maybe we don't wait on that guy. And then the other aspect of this quarterback class is, draft day does kind of like spark stuff in people, like as Andrew Brandt likes to say, deadline spur action. And with Jordan Love sitting there for the Packers, let's say there's a quarterback needy team that missed out on the guy that they liked in round 1, and
Everything
there.
with you goes back to Jordan Love. Every single thing.
Well, you're gonna like what I'm about to say about it. Like, what if a team, panics or doesn't panic, but they say, hey, you know what, we could take Sam Howell here at pick 52, or we could just send it to the Packers for Jordan Love because we had a much higher grade on him coming out.
Yep.
So I wouldn't be shocked. And I saw someone ask that in the chat earlier. They asked, what do you think the odds of Jordan Love getting moved this weekend are? And I would say maybe more than what we realize. And that kind of does go back to, man, draft day, people get antsy. People want to move stuff because that capital that you have, it's leaving. You don't have it anymore when you spend it on a pick, and then it kicks down to the next year. So the quarterbacks are going to be an interesting thing for the Packers this year in a lot of different ways.
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly possible. And what if, the Carolina Panthers, for instance, what if they say, and they don't have a second or third round pick, so factor that in. But I mean, what if they sit there and say, we can get a disgruntled Baker Mayfield at a big number, or we can get a rehabbing Jimmy Garoppolo at an even bigger number, or we could get this young buck who has some untapped ability. The what's behind door number 3 option sounds really intriguing, right? Other than one start, some preseason action this past year, we don't have a great view of how far he's progressed. It's hard to know. His rookie year was essentially a washout. He was the number 3 quarterback. They didn't have a preseason. It was almost like a lost year for him in some respects. So I'm sure there's some skepticism, but at the right price, it might be tempting. Absolutely. And then does Green Bay have a quarterback they like in this class? A little bit lower. I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen them bringing quarterbacks in, so I'm imagining, that part of the equation hasn't been given a whole lot of thought. But yeah, I think you're right about draft day in the sense that, after the 32nd pick is made, a lot of phone calls are made. Sometimes teams will kind of reset their board, look at the, what positions are still strongest, what do we like here, what do we not like, and then you go to your veteran list too and kind of cross-reference it and say who's available, free agent wise, trade targets, and kind of come up with the best plan. So, I mean, again, I'm not ruling it in. I don't think it's better than 50% chance, but it wouldn't stun me at all.
And that could work twofold for Green Bay, right? Like the quarterback run happening later in the first round could coincide with that 28th overall selection. And the strategy that I'm kind of talking myself into, if I put myself in Brian Gutekunst's chair, and anybody who's watching, thank everybody that I am not Brian Gutekunst because I'm not fit to be a general manager. But my strategy that I'm thinking of, if I am Brian Gutekunst, is taking pick 22, targeting somebody in the first round, whether that's, I'm not saying trade both first. Obviously, we just talked about that a little bit ago, but move up 8-9 spots and pick the guy that you really want instead of settling for the guy who's left, so to speak. So grabbing that guy. And then what you do is you take, say it's 22 and 92 to move up to pick 16, just to throw a number out there. Then you move 28 and move backwards.
Right.
And you still grab somebody that you really like and you recoup some of that draft capital. And then if you could trade Jordan Love in the same spot, now you've pretty much you probably come out ahead if you really put that entire trade together, just depending on what it is that it looks like after all of those things. So that's something to watch at the end of the first round as well.
And if you're of the belief that, there's a player value, right? How good are they? But then also, where you can get them, the later you get them, the better, obviously the salary goes down or whatever. I mean, the strength of this draft is probably day 2. I'm not saying there aren't better players who are going to go day 1, of course. But what I'm saying is that the difference is relatively negligible, especially if we get, Logan Halls and Trey McBrides and guys like that who kind of come out of the woodwork a little bit and are mid-second rounders going in the first. Well, that's just pushing more talent down to that range too. So I think a lot of teams, like including New England and trying to think who else I've heard on this one. Dallas, but I don't know about that one anymore. That was maybe earlier last week. They were kind of looking to trade down. Tennessee has looked to trade. There's a lot of teams in that area that have had similar thoughts, I think.
Going that route. So that part will be interesting. We got a little bit of time left. Eric Edholm, you can follow him on Twitter at Eric_Edholm. Find him over at Yahoo Sports. And his mock draft today, it came out today. and it had Trayvon Walker going number 1 to the Jacksonville Jaguars, and that's not why I bring that up. We bring that up because we're getting through the rest of this here. The Packers at pick 22, you have them going Devontae Wyatt, the defensive lineman out of Georgia, and at pick 28, George Pickens, the wide receiver, again out of Georgia. So a double dip for the Georgia Bulldogs. Can you explain just your thought process behind those picks, and then what led you to ultimately have those guys be the picks in those spots?
Yeah, absolutely not. I really can't because
that's
I say that half kidding because I mean every year I have I feel like, all right, Packers are going this direction, and I put in a pick and I feel pretty confident about it, and then okay, and I'm sure you guys have that to a similar degree. It's not like you completely get thrown off by who they select. It's like, for me, it's like option number 6 or something, or option number 4, it's like not the first guy that I would have thought of in the last couple of years. But, with Wyatt, I mean, I think they are probably, I took it as a similar approach to kind of the Rashawn Gary pick, which at the time was like, oh, it's a luxury. We don't need it. Everyone knows, right? You need as many pass rushers as you can. B, you have to think more than 1 year down the line. Today's strengths are tomorrow's weaknesses and all that, right? So, I mean, just thinking in terms of the numbers game, I think they absolutely could use one more D lineman guy who could play, over the nose in passing downs as a 5 tech if you need him to. That's sort of what he did in college. So, I think a good, strong run fitter, quick off the snap. He's got a little bit of bend to him and some good pass rush technique. A little bit, shorter frame, shorter arms. So it's not like a monster or anything like that. But I think a really nice, quick, agile, multi-positional, versatile guy who kind of sort of fits their needs. So, and I mean, that factored in. I think the one thing that, I mean, he's like 24 years old. That's the one scary element about him is they're not scary, but the upside may not be there. That this may just be a workman-like pick if it happens. It was similar to putting Quay Walker at 32, where I was like, I think he's a first rounder, but I can't really find a perfect team for him. So I'll do the best I can. And I mean, so much of this mock draft business is kind of garbage anyway, right?
Yeah.
But Pickens would be, I mean, boy. I'll say it this way. There are some teams that are kind of scared by the character stuff, no question. I think Green Bay would feel good about having Rodgers and having, a head coach who's got an amazing record and now kind of firmly settled into his place. He's in no threat of being fired. I mean, there's security there. I think he's a good in terms of player relations in a lot of cases. So, that type of stable environment, plus it's Green Bay. It's like, its own little, world up there sometimes. That's the kind of team that I could see George Pickens going to. Do I necessarily think he's guaranteed to be the 28th pick in the draft? I can't say that. There are some teams that wouldn't touch him, even on day 2 because of the character stuff. Other teams feel like it's overblown. So I don't know. I mean, the talent, you guys know, it does, I think, come down to teams signing off on that character.
Well, and I mean, the stuff we know about is like he got into the on-field fight, right? Yeah. As a 17, 18-year-old kid in the SEC, like that doesn't really bother me that much just because like you watch him play, like that's how he is. Like he's just a dog. He's a competitive prick.
Yeah.
But like the other stuff that we're hearing about is like maybe he's a little bit immature.
Yep.
Maybe he rubbed some of his teammates the wrong way. And is that, I mean, and I suppose that's why teams can kind of look at it and be like, well, he's immature. Of course he is. He's only 20.
Right.
He just turned 21.
That's correct.
So it is kind of interesting. But is there anything else? Like, or is that pretty much what is out there on him? I've
heard fewer specifics, but I do know a couple things that I'd feel a little bit uncomfortable saying about just because I haven't been able to verify. I heard it from one person, and it's just like you got to be a little bit cautious. But I will say I've heard the word entitled used. I mean, like you said, the teammate thing was. I think his teammate. If you watched him catch the pass in the playoff game and the way that his teammates kind of rallied around him, kind of matches up with what I heard this year, which was the knee injury really kind of knocked him down a peg or two, like it would anybody, right? And first major injury of his career, rehabs, comes back, worked hard got back in shape, was able to contribute to a national champion. That counts for something. And I've heard he's grown up a little bit. I still think there is kind of a fiery kid in there, right? The water bottle incident against Tennessee, it was stupid, right? It was just dumb, right?
Didn't Randy Moss do that too?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Like, Randy Moss did a lot of silly things. I would take him on my team.
So, wait, Eric, so you're saying George Pickens is Randy Moss?
That's it.
Sure
Borderline's
everybody.
right now. Yeah, Borderline's as good as gold. To me, though, the fight was really dumb because it was 48-7 with like 6 minutes to go with the SEC championship the next week. I get it. He was young. He probably got baited into that one, but those are the things that, hopefully he's grown from and learned from. And I think he has. We haven't really seen it. There was some talk about 2020, him kind of being a little bit not dialed in, and then that was some chatter over the summer I heard, but I still have a belief that I think he can be, a very productive guy. And I think eventually kind of fall in line with the professionalism stuff.
He's Eric Edholm. You can follow him on Twitter at Eric_Edholm. And there's a lot that's going to be going on throughout the weekend and a lot of different fun. And for the 2023 stuff, find that as anything goes. So Eric's always available for stuff like this. We appreciate having you on, Eric, and we will have you again soon enough.
You got it. Pleasure coming on, boys. Enjoy the draft. Enjoy whatever happens. Bad pick, good pick. Trade up, trade down.
I can promise you it will be more enjoyable from a Packers fan standpoint than last year's draft. I can promise you that much.
Yes, I agree. I think you're right about that. All right, fellas. Have a good one. See ya.
Take care.
Appreciate it. Let's go to our next guest here. He's been waiting. He's been patient. And I'm sorry because he's our premier guest of the evening.
So hold on, stop. Let me cut you off right there. What the hell is this? You're going to make me follow that up? What am I supposed to say here? I know nothing but compared to Eric Edholm. He was terrific. I really enjoyed that.
Well, all you got to do is say that George Pickens is better than Randy Moss. Because as True North Packers been pointed out, he said that word for word. Ladies and gentlemen, from ESPN Madison, now formerly of the post route and the pre-snap here on Game On Wisconsin, Alex Strofe. And Alex, the first question I have for you that I wanted you to follow up, how was Shinedown? What song did they open with?
Oh, what did they open with? I had a few beers beforehand. I got to be honest. I also got COVID from that concert, so maybe it's a good thing you didn't go. So I apologize if I coughed throughout our conversation here, but I don't remember what they opened with. Is that bad? Second Chance, maybe? I think
no way.
No. Yeah, they didn't start out that slow. You're right. I don't remember, Jacob. I got to be honest. I have it on my phone, but I'm not going to look.
I'll have to look. Oh, I will bet you $5 it was Devil.
It was. You're correct. You're correct.
Okay. I don't actually have to bet you $5 on that is what I was going to say next. So let's get into it, guys.
Venmo you later.
Well, Venmo me later. Thank you. I appreciate that. Let's get right into it, guys. The draft is tomorrow. Alex, what I want to get from you is there is nothing in the world that is more entertaining and also maybe dumber than sports radio phone calls. So when you're taking calls this week for, Wilde and Tauscher and all the stuff that you're doing over there, at ESPN Madison, what is the pulse of the fan base that you're gathering? Because obviously we can gather stuff from Twitter. Some people want to trade 2 first-round picks for Garrett Wilson. Some people want to trade the entire draft for Deebo Samuel. What is the pulse that you're getting from the calls that you guys take?
That's a really good question. I'll get to that in a second, but I think the main point I've taken away from that, right, is if they don't draft a wide receiver tomorrow, things might burn down, right? Like, I really believe unless they get a really sexy pick, right? And I assume that's a wide receiver, a high-ranked wide receiver, depending on whose rankings you're looking at, I guess, given that it's so subjective right now. But if they don't grab a wide receiver, I think people are going to lose their minds. And, I brought up the topic yesterday. What if they go safety and edge rusher? Are you walking away disappointed? Are you happy with that? I'm not mad, but I'm also not thrilled, right? Like, that's not what I'm expecting tomorrow to be. So I think everybody's in the period where their emotions are going to get hurt one way or another, because it's either not going to be the wide receiver they fell in love with and so on and so forth. But I think I heard Jacob Morley say this earlier. This is going to be a blast. I think I heard him say something along the lines of, if they don't go, if they don't go wide receiver, what are we doing? So it's just I'm really intrigued to hear to see where they go tomorrow. I don't know. But to answer your question, I think people are going to lose their minds either way.
Right.
Yeah,
and and I was going to say, like, for receiver, the pitchforks are going to be out. Yeah. My pitchfork is not going to be out until after day 2. Like, if they don't go receiver with their first 4 picks, then I'll be right there with people because I'll be like, really, like, what is going on? Because let's say they go George Karlaftis and Dax Hill in round 1. Like, I'm fine.
I'm okay with that.
Like,
right.
I think those are 2 really good players, and I think there's a lot of value at the wide receiver position and guys that can play early in round 2. But the flip side of that is, what if they get Olave at 22? What if he slides to them? I don't think Packers fans will give 2 shits about what happens the rest of the draft class. They're like, we got Olave. Cool. I don't care what happens after that. So I think, that is the one pick that I think would like galvanize Packers Twitter, which is funny to say. Like, if Chris Olave is the pick at 22, I don't think anyone will not be happy. There will still be some trolls out there, but I think for by and large, people will be pretty pleased with that. And the other thing that is really interesting on Packers Twitter is looking at people and just kind of like, we're in the stage of coping, of people just getting ready to be disappointed, because that is what the Packers have kind of done to us the last few years. But then, outside of Jordan Love,
1 year. It's 1 year of.
I still think I will tell you this. And morally, to your point, there was 2 recent drafts that people still bring up nonstop. Of course, you've got the Jordan Love pick a couple of years back, but was it 20? I believe it was 2017 when they traded out when TJ Watt was on the board. Sure. Wisconsin, and remember, I'm in Madison, so a lot of Badgers fans here. That still gets brought up on a weekly basis.
That will never be forgotten, right? No. So and
those are the 2 in the last 5 years.
And Rashawn Gary to a certain degree too. I think people were disappointed initially with that.
Initially.
And then the Darnell Savage move up, I think people were kind of like, weren't mad about it, but it was kind of like unexpected. Jordan Love massively upset. People were upset about. And even last year, to a certain extent, Eric Stokes, I think the initial reaction to Eric Stokes was not a good one, because all the drama with 12 going on that day made it feel like they had to take a receiver like this year, So like, if they take that guy, I mean, and then the flip side of all of that is all these guys that people were disappointed in have been really good. Aside from the quarterback that hasn't played, all these picks that they've taken in the top 100-ish, they're good at drafting these guys. So that's kind of where I'm at. And I think most rational Packers fans will kind of be at as well. It's like, okay, I still trust Goot. I still trust him. I think he took a good player, and I think it's gonna work out, because he's earned that. He's earned that benefit of the doubt with his first round draft pick. So we will see. We will see this time tomorrow.
I'm so excited.
We won't know. We won't know yet, but we'll be in the thick of it this time tomorrow.
Yeah, I can't wait, man. And it's so interesting because you use the term rational Packer fans, right? A lot of us aren't, right? And I might be part of that. Yeah. Like, I think overreactive is another word we could throw at our fan base. And that's not as a diss, right? Because I think I fall right into that category too. So I don't know. I think it's the draft has never felt like it has as big of an impact, at least recently, for the Packers as it does this year, right? Like, absolutely. I think we can all flat out agree on that, because there's so much uncertainty. And so I think we're going to see Jordan Love-esque level. There we go. Reaction if the Packers don't go wide receiver. Maybe not in the first round, but I feel like with 2 picks there, assuming they don't move, and there's no wide receiver taken, I just feel like it is going to be chaos, and I'm here for it, I guess. I don't know. I'm still confused by everything, right? Because there's this expectation now that you can draft a wide receiver and they'll have an immediate year 1 impact. And while there has been some recent cases of that happening, several of them, in fact, I look at like a guy like not just Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, but Terry McLaurin, I think, had a pretty good impact his rookie year. So there are guys that can come in and work. It's just, it's not as likely as I think some of us think it is. Is that fair?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's fair.
I don't know, because here's the thing that I've been going at here. There's a couple thoughts I have on this. So in previous years, like 2020, when they took Jordan Love and they didn't take a receiver that entire draft class, And everyone's like, oh, it's the deepest draft class we've ever seen at that position. And Gutekunst was basically like, well, we didn't feel that way. And they didn't take one. Their justification could still be, well, we still have Devontae Adams. And then last year, they didn't take one until they had Amari Rodgers there in the third round. And they could say, well, we still have Devontae Adams. We got these guys that we liked, and they played off of each other well last year, all that stuff. They don't have that fallback option this year. Like, they can't say our starting point is Devontae Adams. The starting point is Allen Lazard, who is a Jag, and Sammy Watkins, who is going to be okay until he gets injured 3 games into the season, and Randall Cobb, who's the quarterback's best friend.
I've talked about this every day for the last, when did the trade happen? A little over a month ago. And I still can't believe the Packers' number 1 receiver is a debate between Allen Lazard and Sammy Watkins. That's just mind boggling to me. Still been over a month. Anyway,
and
continue.
That's why I think that for the Packers, so like this is the Morley theory, and that is that the last couple of years they've had guys they've liked, they've had guys they've wanted, Brandon Ayuk, Justin Jefferson, Rashad Bateman, just to name a couple, and they didn't get them. For one reason or another, they didn't get him. Last year, they could have made a small move to get Bateman. They chose not to, ended up taking Eric Stokes. That pick, I think, worked out well for them. But I don't think you can afford to wait and be standing there, for lack of better phrasing, with your dick in your hand, because you weren't able. And you know what? I understand. I say this all the time. Don't draft players just to say that you took them. But you also can't go into the season with Allen Lazard and Randall Cobb as your top, and Sammy Watkins without some guy that's at least developing behind those. And I've been of the belief that with their first 5 picks, 2 of them need to be pass catchers. That could mean a receiver and a tight end. That could mean 2 receivers. But they need to add to that position group. And this is kind of the byproduct of not picking a player. And this doesn't just mean in the first round. They haven't picked a receiver in the top portion of the draft, and Amari Rodgers doesn't count, since Devontae Adams. And when you haven't done it for that long, this is what happens to where maybe, like, do you want to take George Pickens at 22? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe you'd rather pick somebody else. But do you also want to risk that George Pickens is the last receiver that you like on the board? Now he's not available at 28. That's kind of the consequence of not being able to do that. Is now it's very similar to what they had to do, a couple of years ago when this is 10 years ago now, they took Nick Perry. Or they had guys that Demarius Randall, they felt they had to reach at certain positions because they didn't have those guys. Well, they don't have those guys at receiver now, so they have to be able to do those things. What do you think about that thought of it? And that maybe they have to reach for a guy because they haven't been able to add to that position.
So it's not the best available, philosophy they've lived by, at least during the Thompson era, right? Just kind of grab the best guy and move on. And sometimes reach for your guy, which in Ted Thompson's case, I still think his biggest case of that was when he traded up to get Clay Matthews, right? And Clay Matthews was his guy. So I'd like to see Goody say, yeah, that's my guy, right? And you can make a case. Maybe Jordan Love was the move there. I'm excited for in 5 years when we can make whatever that Jordan Love pick was. We'll understand it with more context. But anyway,
we'll understand it on Friday when they trade him.
Doubt it. But do you really think it can happen?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah,
I do. And yeah,
who wants them?
Atlanta. I'm just
Carolina.
guessing. Atlanta,
I think it's going to be, I think it'll be, we talked about this with Eric too. Like, I think it'll be a team in the second round that's staring Sam Howell in the face and saying, like, do we like him more than Jordan Love?
Yeah, I am willing to wager a large amount of money that maybe. not large amount of money, but
I think it's like a 25% chance it happens.
Wow.
But I think
that's higher than I'd think, but I give it to you.
Well, and here's the thing for Green Bay, because I've been talking about this with somebody in Morley even, and there are other people that are in Morley's camp on this, is just that, do you want to sell, like, you've already got this guy, he's been in your system for a year. Do you want to have 2 years and just kind of waste that and sell him for 85 cents on the dollar? To which the answer to that question for me is yes. Yeah. Because if he stinks this year in the preseason, which he might not, and Aaron Rodgers is back next year, now you're not going to get anything for him. So 85 cents is a lot more than 25 cents. So if a team wants to trade a day 2 pick for somebody like that, then that's what we'll do.
God, would that be fun though? Would that be fun?
God, your Monday morning on Sports Talk would just be incredible if they traded Jordan.
Well, I'm just excited for Friday morning because of whatever happens tomorrow, whether it's good or bad, right? I mean, people are going to be buzzing especially if they have 2 first-round picks. It's been a few years since that has been the case, right? I mean, Savage and Gary was the last year? Yeah. I would love to see it. I mean, I'd love some spice. Look, Jordan Love is never going to be the starting quarterback of the Green Bay Packers, I don't think. Like, I'm with Morley and you, Westendorf, on that. Like, there's a chance, right? Like, but I think it's slim to none. I mean, and that's as soon as Aaron Rodgers is done. If he gets hurt,
so my question is, like, off of that, so
yeah.
it's slim to none. Is that because Green Bay won't trade him, or because the league doesn't want him? Like the rest of the league won't trade for him, basically.
Well, I think your point is, right, like this might be the last year you can get something for him if he stinks in preseason, as you just said, right? So I don't know. We could get to that point. Or Aaron Rodgers never retires.
or he lights it up this preseason. I mean, like,
that's
his
possible
value.
That's
his value is either going to go up or it's going to plummet. Like, it's not going to stay stagnant. I don't think
it's huge. It's huge if he plays this preseason. And, I read a comment, I didn't see the rumor mill of Atlanta saying they want Love. That's interesting.
I will just throw this out here. The rumor mill that's coming from a guy who has hashtag OANN in his profile. It's like Ballsack Sports, or it's a parody account. Like, it's not real. So I don't put any stock in that.
Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't either.
So we're running short on time. And Alex, I know you said that you've got a pretty quick out here, and the Bucks are playing. So we got to get the end of the Bulls season here.
It's not even close. So I got 10 minutes. You're good.
Okay. All right. Well, let's think on this. So tomorrow night, the Packers are going to be on the clock. What percentage chance do you think it is that they just pick at 22 and 28?
You're asking me the percentage they pick at both picks, or just one of the two?
Right. So they don't trade at all and they just stick and pick.
I'm going to be boring. 50%. Like, I really have no idea what Brian Gutekunst does on draft day. We're several years into it now, and I still can't get a gauge for that guy. It depends, right? It depends how quickly the wide receivers are flying off the board, I think, because we can agree that is his number one want, I'd hope, right? Like, so if they start flying off the board, then yes, I think he might move. I'm actually going to change my answer. How's that, guys? That work? I'm really professional.
That's what we do on here.
Exactly. I'm very set in stone. 35% they pick at both. I think there's more chance of at least some movement than there isn't, right? They could trade back at 28. They could trade up from 28. They could trade back from 22, right? I mean, there's so many reasonable options in there depending on the movement and what they do. If they do pick at 22, then you've got 28. So I will go. There was a 35% chance they stay put at both spots. There's your answer.
Well, so Goody has had 5 first-round draft picks since being the general manager for the Packers, and he has traded up in 3 of them.
Yeah.
So that's 60%. He's got 2 this year. Extrapolate that. Carry the X. I don't know.
Carry the Y. Right.
Carry the Y. I don't know how to do math, but good. The chances of him moving around, I think, are going to be good this year. I think I tweeted that earlier today. It's like, that's the one thing that I think I'm most sure about, is that they're not going to pick at 22 and 28. And if they do, cool. But I'll be surprised.
Yeah, no, you guys follow the draft a lot closer than I do. I think that's very clear through 15 minutes of our conversation, right? But I think that makes sense. So what are the 3 drafts? I know he moved back for Jair, and that was his first year as GM, right?
Moved back, then he moved back up.
That's right. That's right. Okay, good point. Love is obviously one.
And then
Savage.
Darnell Savage.
Savage, correct. Okay,
so he's had 5 first-round picks, but only 4 years. So one of the years, he's only not traded up in one of the years, and it was last year where he stuck and picked Eric Stokes. So he's Alex Strofe. I'm Jacob Westendorf, Jacob Morley. Alex has to do some show prep for tomorrow, which is draft day. And then, of course, Friday morning, feel free to call in to ESPN Madison. Check him out there. Alex, always a pleasure. We'll definitely have to have you back sometime again. You're welcome anytime.
Yeah, thanks for teaching me more about the draft, guys. My prep's a little behind this year, as well, you can tell.
That's good to know. So I look forward to tomorrow and seeing what it is that they can do. And then I'll be one of the angry people calling in. How about that?
Jahan Dotson, are we happy about that at 28, let's say?
No.
Okay, I'm just wondering.
There you go. There you go.
I can throw like 6 more names at you if you'd like. I mean,
sure, we'll just do a quick 60-second yes or no. Throw your names that you got.
I heard you mention George Pickens earlier. Are we happy about him?
Yes.
Or no?
Big yes.
Obviously, Olave we're happy with, right?
Yes.
Big yes. Yep.
And same with, obviously, Wilson, Williams, and London, I would assume.
Nope.
Which one is a no?
Wilson.
London.
I wouldn't be in on Wilson. I like the
I'm
other
out
two.
on London.
We are split on London, but so
Yeah,
no,
okay.
that'd
I
be
like
no of
London.
those three.
That's
I like
interesting
Wilson.
because
I
Garrett
like
Wilson's
J-Mo.
the top of, I would say that's really the highest number one I'm seeing on most lists, right? Like, but it's
Yeah.
not unanimous, which is fun.
Yeah, I don't get what you do with him. I think he's a slot. I think he's a slot that is going to take a little bit more time. But NFL loves him. I do know that. I just don't.
I've seen that, but hey, I trust Morley more than I trust most people. So there we go. I just got learned. Thank you, fellas.
That's wrong.
Yeah, that is wrong. Alex, appreciate it. We'll see you again.
Thanks, fellas.
All right, let's go to the next one. We've got the publisher of Packer Report joining us for the signature segment of this version of the Gold Zone. Jake Morley and I did this a year ago. It is a snake draft, 10 players, and who ends up a Green Bay Packer. The winner of this contest, which last year was nobody because Morley and I got a big fat 0.
Yeah.
The winner of this contest gets a box of Built Bars from the two losers. So I don't know what Ross thinks is so damn funny, but evidently, ladies and gentlemen, Ross Uglum of Packer Report. Ross, the work is done. Everything is going. How excited are you for tomorrow night? And you were at a quick trip today. What'd you get?
So yesterday was my 34th birthday, and
God, you're old.
Hey, you're the same age as Devontae Wyatt.
yeah, we went to the Minnesota Twins game. And the beauty of Quick Trip is that it has very much infested Minnesota. So when you're in Minneapolis, you're very close to the Wisconsin border, and you can be up in a Quick Trip if you want to be. This was the morning, so I got the hash brown sticks and the breakfast pizza.
Oh, yeah. Breakfast pizza is a go-to.
The hash brown sticks are tough to beat, though, man.
Oh, they are. So let me ask you this.
Okay.
Hash brown sticks from Quick Trip or Cinnabon Delights from Taco Bell?
Oh, Cinnabon Delights, but I'm a sweet tooth guy. Like, and
yeah,
my wife needed like a cappuccino too, the easy push the button one. So, Quick Trip's got it all. We were able to get what needed to get done. I got caffeinated. I got back to the motherland. We're all good. We're all good. But yeah, I mean, usually it is rare, especially since they've gone to a 3-day event, that my birthday isn't on one of the draft days. Like, you remember I used to go to Wisconsin to hang out with Ryan and whatever. In fact, you might have been involved in some of that at some point. But yeah, odd for me to turn the calendar once again with no draft. And here we are with a late one. Darn near going to dip into May with this selection meeting, but hard not to be incredibly excited.
Yeah.
Of course, the Gary Savage draft where they had traded, into a position where they had 2 first-round picks the following year was exciting, but this is 4 top 60 picks. It's unprecedented. Now, granted, picking 12th was different, because normally you got to stay up late if you're a Packers guy. But this is unprecedented draft capital. Very exciting stuff.
Yeah, 4 picks in the top 60, like Ross mentioned. And the other part that's kind of exciting is, and what's different from when they picked 12th was not as many just gaping roster holes as that team had. Because that team, remember, that team that was picking 12th was picking 12th because they were the team that stunk. Like the New Orleans Saints pick was the one at 30. So Green Bay was picking 12th because Green Bay was bad. And now in this case, they're picking, 22nd and 28. 28 Green Bay was good. The Raiders were okay, good enough, whatever you want to say for that. So a lot going on, a lot of fun. It's going to be exciting. I don't anticipate, I didn't get to this with Strofe, but I'm going to be very surprised if the Packers pick 22nd. I think that 28 is, oh boy, I don't know which one I would say is more likely, I guess, that they pick out, but I'm going to be surprised if they pick 22nd. Mark Murphy just basically said it would be a shock if Gutekunst didn't move around in the first round. That doesn't mean up or down necessarily, but I tend to think in this day, it's going to be a move up type of situation. But we'll get to that here in just a little bit. So Morley, go ahead and explain the rules of our game here that we're going to play. I know I just kind of did that, but we got a little bit of time.
Well, so this is it's just a snake draft. So it's going to be Jacob picking first, Ross picking second, me picking third, and then I'll pick fourth, and so on and so forth. We are going to try to select players that we think will be Green Bay Packers. So
Any
probably
round.
all have any round,
Doesn't
1
matter,
through
okay.
7. If you get the very last pick, their 7th round pick right, and that's the only guy we get right, you win. You win the whole deal, and Jacob, will send you a box of Built Bars or whatever. That's going to be the bet, and we're going to do it that way. So, Dorf, you have the first pick, and we'll kind of just roll through these. We're going to pick 10 guys each, so 30 players overall. Hopefully this year we get one right.
Zach Tom.
Zach Tom. Are you writing it in, or do you want me to write it in?
I haven't written any of them in.
I'm
Yeah,
not
that's
doing
a
any
you.
work.
That's a you job. Ross is just the
Okay.
talent. He's the guy who shows up and just.
I'm refusing to do anything.
Yeah. Well, don't pick someone that's already been picked. Damn it, that's going to be the thing here.
Yeah,
Ross.
there's punishments for that. We just don't know what they are yet.
Ross, what's your pick?
Thomas Booker, Stanford defensive lineman.
All right, I'll take Alec Pierce, and I'll take Jameson Williams.
Drake Jackson, edge, USC.
Okay. Drake Jackson.
I'll take Logan Hall, and I will take Daxton Hill.
Ross.
Yeah. Let's see. Well, what the hell? Christian Watson, wide receiver, North Dakota State.
I wasn't going to take him because I was going to let you have him.
I thought about it, but I didn't.
All right, I'm going to take Chris Olave and George Pickens. Wait, nope. I'm not going to take George Pickens. I'm going to take Treylon Burks. Watch it be George Pickens now, and now everyone can see me fumble the win.
We're taking very different tacks at this because your guys' day is going to be over on Friday.
I'm trying to corner. I'm trying to corner the market at one position.
Sure.
If you have
Cole Strange, Chattanooga, offensive line.
He's good. He's good.
I will take George Pickens because that's going to be hilarious.
Yeah, damn it.
And and I will take Romeo Dubs from Nevada.
Oh, now I see you're trying to get up in on my guys. Okay, that's fine. Whatever.
Don't spend so much time with me if you don't want to be talking through these things.
I should have taken Dubs earlier. That is such a Packers dude. Okay.
Tyquan Thornton, wide receiver, Baylor.
All right, I'm about to win it right now. I'm calling my shot. Can't believe nobody's taken this guy. Jalen Tolbert. And George Karlaftis. Thought you lasted that long.
That was my
Where are we
next
at?
pick.
Okay. That was 1, 2, 3, 4. So I've got 6 guys. This is everybody's 6th pick.
Nick Cross, safety, Maryland.
Love Nick Cross. Pick up 2 picks.
Isaiah Spiller, which might blow up the internet if that happens, but there's always one.
They brought him in.
They sure did, didn't they? And Sean Ryan.
Ross?
Yeah, I'm just looking. Quit doing that.
Ross, go. I'm going to jump you.
Zion McCollum, cornerback, Sam Houston State.
Oh, yeah.
You like him?
They might.
They might.
I like him to run down. I like him
to run down on special teams.
Yeah, I got to make sure that I have this correct. I like him at 6'2", 200 pounds as a punt gunner that runs a 4.33 and verts 39.
He's fast. He's fast as get alive. All right, I'm gonna take Zion, offensive lineman, Boston College, and Ryan Van Denmark.
You watch your mouth down there. Lambo Labo. Matt Let's did not go to North Dakota State.
Ew. They would never.
Yeah, that would be that'd be the other one.
Yeah. You watch your mouth.
Okay, so everyone's got wait. Yeah, I've got 2 picks left. You guys are on your 8th.
Who is it? Me?
It's you,
It
Ross.
sure is.
Okay. Dominique Robinson, edge, Miami of Ohio.
I was gonna take him with my last pick. That dude. Hey, you want to talk about the Packers not taking a receiver? Technically, he played receiver for his first 3 years at Miami, Ohio. So
That's great. Thanks.
you're welcome.
I'll do Travis Jones
Oh,
and Jelani Woods.
Has anybody taken Drake London?
You're going to right now.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. There you go. There you go.
That's a good pick. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so my last 2 picks. I've got to nail one here. I'm gonna take me a Lewis Seen.
I can't believe it took you this long to get there.
Well, I did go heavy on round 1 guys, so I wasn't gonna do it. And then, please hold. All my people that I wrote down are gone. All right, I know who I'm going to take. I'm going to take.
I'm sorry. Please
Yeah.
hold was a great line.
So, Ross, how many drugs have you done tonight? Like, you've been awfully giggly.
Bro,
Dude,
we're
we're
running
just
on
funny.
low sleep. I've got
I'll
a
say
3-month-old.
sleep.
I got a 2-year-old. There's a lot going on around here.
No, I just looked into the future.
I'm taking future Packer Chigozium Okonkwo. All name team. Ross, you're up.
That is an all-name team.
Let's go Isaiah Weston, wide receiver, Northern Iowa.
And Mr. Irrelevance for this particular selection. Watch this be the one that wins it. I will take Bubba Bolden, safety from Miami.
Bubba.
It's an
All right,
all-name
there-
team type of thing.
There it is. I will tweet this out, and the people will go nuts over it.
So is a tie just a wash? How does that work?
Yeah, I think so.
So a tie just becomes a wash, or like if Ross and I tie at the top, do you just send both of us a Built Bar?
Sure. Yeah.
All right, let's do it that way.
What if we all get one this year?
Then that would be a wash. Okay, let's get into it. Let's get to some final stuff here. Final thoughts, Jerry Springer style here, guys. Just real quick. I talked about this, Ross, just a little bit. I was talking about the likelihood that they pick 22nd and 28th. What is your thought process on them picking at both of those spots? Do you think they move up? Do you think they move down? What do you think their overall strategy is going to be in this class?
If I had to put a prediction in place, I would say they pick at 22 and then trade out of 28 into the 33 to 38 range. That's what I would do. But I think they could be aggressive too. If they really, really, really like Jameson Williams or Chris Olave, or Garrett Wilson, which I'm not so much about that, but whatever. I mean, there are people who think he's the best receiver in this class. So, what are you going to do? Yeah, I think, I put it at 25% that they actually just fire at 22 and fire at 28 and don't do anything. I think, Goody has shown that he'll move around, moved up for Love, moved around with the, the Savage stuff, moved certainly back to take Jair and get the pick that he was able to use for Savage. He likes to do stuff. So I'm guessing he'll like to do stuff tomorrow. I wouldn't be, I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if they picked, I wouldn't be surprised if they picked one guy. I wouldn't be surprised if they picked 3 guys. Very, very little would surprise me.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. I think the strategy that I am supporting, and this obviously a lot of variables at play, right? Like how does the board look when all this stuff happens? But the strategy I am supporting is trading up from 22 and targeting a guy, whether that's a pass rusher, an offensive tackle, a receiver, name your position, targeting a guy there, and then trying to recoup that capital by trading down from 28. Now it does.
What an absolutely tragic attempt at spelling Zion McCollum for whoever did that.
That would have been Morley, and it was.
That was me. Oh shoot! I just tweeted that out too. I did not look at the edit on that at all.
I don't think
teacher, Youth of America.
Right. Karloftis is wrong.
Guys, I was going quick.
Mercy.
Youth of America is in trouble.
Okay,
so
I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna have to delete that tweet.
Well, there you go.
Once again,
so there's that. I wish you luck in deleting that tweet. But that is the strategy that I am supporting, and that is moving up, targeting whoever that guy is. Like I said, is there a guy that's? I think Ross, you might have mentioned this a couple weeks ago. Is there
like 22? I mean, 20, and I'd have to look at the Rich Hill chart, but like 22 and 53 should be able to get you wherever you want to go, truly. Yeah. And then you still have 28 and 59. You still end up with more players than you would normally get, and hopefully you got whoever the hell it is you think is maybe not the next Devontae, but like a star, people talk about, okay, well, there's only 19 first-round grades in this class. Okay, go get one of those 19 guys then, and don't just pray that one of them falls to 22. And one thing, I wouldn't say argued about, but talked about this morning was you and Owen on Pack-A-Day did this 7-round mock draft thing, and you ended up taking 3 receivers in the top 6 picks.
Yeah, 132 was the last
and I really
one.
think the Watkins, not our guy Watson, but the Watkins signing, I think I wouldn't be surprised if maybe they added a tight end and a wide receiver in the top 100 or the 5 picks they have inside of 92. I will be surprised if they add 2 wide receivers between 22 and 92, because you're really putting yourself in a place where one of those guys has to play special teams, which could happen. Jordy played a lot of special teams, stuff like that. But if you're considering Watkins as a lock, and I do, and I know that's, but I just don't think the quarterback that wears number 12 calls a guy and tells him to come to Green Bay and he doesn't make the team. Like, I think Watkins, obviously they're not like best friends, wives having dinner together like him and Randall Cobb, but I think Watkins kind of has the Rodgers stamp. So if you view Watkins and you view Lazard and you view Cobb, and some people might view Amari Rodgers as a lock as well, like, the best you're getting on this squad is 3 more guys. And so you're talking about Malik Taylor, you're talking about Juwan Winfrey, you're talking about, anybody. And by the way, some of them have to play special teams. And then you're talking about anybody that you would add from this group. And it gets to be kind of a question. So we'll see. But I think that the people that are talking about riots in the street, if Green Bay doesn't take 2 receivers really, really early, need to kind of look at roster construction and understand what you actually want a 6th and or 7th wide receiver on your roster to do.
Yeah, and that's a fair point. And earlier when we talked about it, just to clarify, I'm 97% sure Watkins makes the team as well.
Sure. Yeah. Yep.
Could you see a situation where like Watkins injures his hamstring and they do the Devin Funchess injury settlement thing? That's like where that 3% thing comes into play. But otherwise, like, with the guys that we took, just those 3 specifically, and those who haven't seen it, it was.
And I know the money's, and I don't mean to interrupt, but I am going to. I know the money is pretty similar. I do think they view, and I view the Watkins signing as one level above the Funchess signing. Like, I think they really view this guy as whatever. I don't think the team is like, this is WR1, this is WR2, but they view him as like, okay, he's gonna play 40 snaps of our 65 snaps on offense. He's a starter.
Yeah. And I think that the goal as we went into that, and we kind of talked about it a little bit, was just to add 3 pass catchers. And maybe that meant, 1 receiver and a tight end later. And we ended up adding a couple more guys on anything like that. But that's just, like I mentioned, that's the way I kind of looked at it. But if you are doing that thing where you're adding, 1 receiver early and 1 receiver, late. So just for namesake, Chris Olave and Bo Melton, just to throw 2 names out there. And that guy being a top 150 player and the other guy being a top 20 player. This is where we kind of talked about it a little bit earlier, is in a perfect world, is there a receiver worth the 13th pick in this year's class? Maybe not. But that's also kind of the consequence from using your draft capital the way that you have over the last couple of years. And then now, not only that, but having to replace Davante Adams. And that's where I'm talking about, trying to get somebody that instead of having to wait and say like, hey, we got these three guys graded similarly. Well, let's just say that's Drake London, Chris Olave, and Jamison Williams. Like there's definitely a world where all three of those guys are long gone by pick 22. And now you're sitting there and maybe they don't like Treylon Burks. He certainly doesn't fit some of the testing requirements that they have. Maybe they don't like George Pickens. Maybe they're one of those teams with the character flaw issue thoughts that they have. I don't think that they are, but they could be something like that. So Morley, real quick, what is your take on this? Do you think the Packers are just sticking and picking? Do you think they move? What do you think their strategy is on this side of things?
Yeah, I think they move. I think they move around. And just to kind of touch on what you guys were talking about with the receivers too, I think the Packers keep 7 receivers this year. I just don't think there's enough continuity for this team to be able to just say we're keeping 6, especially with Sammy Watkins being able to never stay healthy.
And the other take I have on that is like Ross, you said Malik Taylor's special teams, and that's cool. Like, and I understand that that's what wide receiver 6 and wide receiver 7 do, but like being the best, it's kind of like that conversation we had, years ago when they let some of those guys on defense go, and everybody was like, "Oh, they're getting rid of all these guys on defense from that crappy defense." It's like, okay, so they're getting rid of good special teams players from a crappy special teams. Like there could be some rehauling of that part of the roster there too.
And that could have been, like coaching more than anything else.
Sure.
But you do have to go through it, right? Because you're like Lazard has expressed interest. I don't know if interest is the right word. Willingness to play special teams. Do you really want that? I don't know. Cobb can't. Amari Rodgers kind of can't. Like, if you think he sucks at returning, or he's not big enough or athletic enough to go cover a kick or to go punt gun, he certainly can't punt gun. So Amari doesn't have special teams value. You might not want Lazard on special teams. Cobb has no special teams value other than maybe going back and fair catching, which
he didn't even do that last year. Yeah.
So now you're down to 3 receivers. Watkins has no special teams value. That's 4 receivers. Now you have 4 receivers with no special teams value, and you're starting to, if you take a Jamison Williams, I don't think like an Olave has any special teams value. Truly, I don't. Like he's little. Like
Jamison probably doesn't either.
I think he can be Emmanuel Sanders, maybe even a little bit more in the league, and be like an awesome number 2 or a borderline, really, a borderline number 1. I love him. He's my top guy, but I don't think he has special teams value. That's why, like, man, you start looking down and you start constructing this roster, and that's why I think, man, Christian Watson and Alec Pierce, they make a ton of sense. They make a ton of sense. Even I don't even know if Drake London has a ton of special teams value, even at his size. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's where Pierce, I think, is the one where he fits Green Bay so well for all the reasons that you're talking about, to where he's going to be well, I guess I don't know where he's going to be picked, but he's somebody that whenever he is.
That's the thing is I don't think you can get Alec Pierce outside the top 100. So maybe if it is like Olave and Pierce, it's like, oh, well, they got a very, 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 or Jamison and Pierce. Oh, well, they got a very, very, very good small receiver that can't play teams. And then they got a punt gunner who is maybe going to be a very good 3rd or 4th option, a la James Jones, or a la not the same type of player, but like, okay, well, those years you had Jordy when he was wide receiver 4, like the Super Bowl season, basically when, Jennings and Jones and Finley and blah were getting all those targets. Jordy was kind of left alone on an island with a lot of corners that weren't very good, and that worked out awesome for the Packers. And maybe that guy can be Alec Pierce.
Won a championship, I mean, like if not for Aaron Rodgers, Jordy Nelson's a Super Bowl MVP in that particular setting. So it's a lot of fun there. So I mean, that's the case on that side of things. If they don't go receiver in the first round, Ross, because I think we spent a lot of time talking receivers, and understandably so. Like we talked about this earlier, Jake, that the Packers in previous years when they haven't taken receivers, it's been like, well, they got Devontae. Like that's a really good starting point. They don't have that starting point anymore. The starting point isn't that they have Davante Adams. The starting point is Lazard, Cobb, Watkins, which is like, it's not as bad as like people saying it's the worst receiver room in the league, but it's also not a very good one. But so that being said, if they're not taking a receiver early, where or who or what are some guys that you think that you're looking at based on? I know you have your short list that you publish for Packer Report. So what are some names that kind of come available in some of those spots that you think are worth a look?
Just non-receivers, basically.
Yeah.
Karlaftis is the one, and I just mentioned. I got asked a very similar question on the sports lead in Western Wisconsin today, and Karlaftis is my number one answer. Like to me, I don't agree with these people that have concerns. Like to me, he's a top 10 or 12 prospect in this draft period.
Where do you have him on your edge? Because like mine, it's Hutchinson, Thibodeaux, Karlaftis is third.
Well, for sure. Yeah, I have him above Trayvon, who will go ahead of him, and I get the whole Trayvon thing, and Trayvon would be the most Packers pick ever, but he's not going to be available, so it doesn't matter. The Karlaftis thing, and I get that it's Nevada, it's not that big of a deal. Mountain West is okay football, but my man was 18 years old in a road game at Nevada, and he had 14 pressures. At 8, I don't care what tackle you're going at. When you're 18 and you're giving somebody 14 pressures, I'm going to pay attention to that. He's still a young kid, true junior. Pressure numbers are great. Athleticism numbers are great. He's one of those guys, man, that I think just makes so much sense for them, what they need, what they value. It's clear to me that they value having multiple edges that they have investments in. Think how much they paid the Smiths and then drafted Gary. They need their third guy. I think Goody would like to have a fourth guy, honestly. But other guys, outside of the receiver, I think Dulcich makes a lot of sense if they really believe he's the top tight end in the draft. Pick your tackle, Abe Lucas. I don't love guys from Washington State, but I think Abe Lucas makes a lot of sense. If you do end up with one of the like Zion Johnson guys or Sean Ryan guys in those top 60 that you want to play interior offensive line, and you're really going to commit to Elton Jenkins as a tackle. And other than that, the Jordan Davis thing, but it just gets hard to match up first round because I love Devontae Wyatt. He hits everything that they want from a size standpoint, but he's 24 years old, and that's just something they didn't do.
And the character concerns, that's not something they've invested.
Yeah, if Christian Watson was 21, I think they'd already have his name on the card.
Right. Yeah.
But he's not. He's 22, and he's going to turn 23 before he goes to camp. And that goes for Boye Mafe as well. It goes for a lot of guys, man. And so
anyways, but
that's why I don't know. It's tough. It's tough. And
it's a wonder if they talked about the way that they changed doing stuff with the COVID year. I wonder if that might be hey, maybe we'll take somebody who's 23 that we wouldn't, or going to turn 23 that we wouldn't in a normal year. But since it's not a normal year, but sorry. Yeah. The two guys that you were talking about.
I had to I had to laugh because it seems like, and I have a ton of respect for Justice. I have him on usually once after every time the Packers draft, and we usually see so eye to eye on edge prospects, mostly because I kind of use his initial list as where I start my work from. But boy, do we differ on some stuff. He doesn't like Watson. I obviously do. For the APC, just wrote Sonny Weaver Jr. wrote down no safeties in round one, no matter what. And I'm going to tell you what, two guys that make a ton of sense for this team are Lewis Seen and Daxton Hill. And you could call Daxton a nickel, but man, you start talking about premier programs, 9+ RAS, you start talking about what they value. That's them. Here. This I want to, because I want this to be somewhere. I want this, because this is a terrible take, and I get it all the time. It's honestly was Justice's take, and I want to take it down and just have people understand it's not even close. The way that these two guys played football is not similar. Congratulations, you're able to measure their height and their weight and their speed and say that they're similar. Guess what? there's a lot of guys in today's day and age that are 6'3+ and run a 4.3, and some of them aren't going to get drafted in the top 100. And it happens every year. There's tall guys that run fast that don't get drafted high. MVS was one of them. The reason Christian Watson is on the athletics board as a consensus number 44 overall player in this class and might get drafted on Thursday is because this is a bad take. He's not MVS. He's not. He is a better route runner than MVS. He is more of a Debo threat than MVS as far as real live handoffs. North Dakota State handed up in the backfield, lined him up in the backfield, handed him the ball, threw him smokes, threw him swings, ran jet sweeps with him. He was an all-American kick returner. MVS had no special teams value at all. Watson was an all-American kick returner. He was an all-American level blocker. That's something that MVS had to learn and was still just okay at. Watson is a Lazard level blocker right now and will only get better as he gets involved in an NFL strength program. And you saw him absolutely routing up guys at the Senior Bowl. This limited route tree stuff is bullshit. Like, you look at what North Dakota State asked him to do, they were 48-4 in his time there, winning by an average of 39-13. They ran the ball 55 times, and the play to Watson was play action and go run a 9 or go run a post, and we're going to hit you for a 60-yard touchdown. You don't need to have a diverse route tree when you're up 25 points every game. And
Russ, talk on this too, because I know there's people that will talk about, well, he played less than 35% of snaps for North Dakota State.
Yeah. Here's the thing about North Dakota State. They run a lot of 22 personnel. They're not going to have him be that one guy usually, because they will have some walk-on third string go block the corner when they're running A-gap power or running G, like the big. And every play at North Dakota State, and you've come to their games, every play at North Dakota State, they sub out all 5 skill guys and come in with a different personnel package. Every play. And that didn't change for Christian Watson. So you'll get 3 receivers, a tight end, and a fullback on one play. The next play, they might come in with 3 fullbacks, a tight end, and a tailback. Or 2 tailbacks, a tight end, and a receiver. And it's always different receivers. This snap percentage thing is just the way they call football, man.
I get why you would look at it and be like,
defend.
I get why you look at it and be like, well, why wouldn't he be on the field for more than 35% if he is all that in a bag of chips?
Right.
I would get that if it were any other program other than North Dakota State, because they don't lose. Like, what they do, why would they go away from that? Like, that would be bonkers for them to be like, we've won 9 in the last 11. Let's change it up. Like, why would they're not going to do that. They're going to run the ball down your throat. They're only throwing the ball 250 times a year. So, like, that stuff as well. Yeah. So I think, and that's some of the takes are just like you're not as familiar with North Dakota State as some other people.
Yeah. How are you going to take a 35 catch wide receiver in the first round? It's like, well, you have to understand context. And if you don't care enough to go look at the context, it's like, what are you really doing? The questionable hands thing, that's legitimate from early on in his career. I don't care about hands in general. Like, they come and they go. Jordy dropped the ball. Devontae dropped the ball. James Jones dropped the ball. They get over it. Like, more often than not, they get over it. And when you're talking about a team and a program that only runs the ball or only throws the ball 250 times a year, you are going to be in a situation where 3 or 4 drops in a 2-game stretch screws up your catch percentage in a huge way, because you're not getting 80 more targets to fix your catch percentage. It just is what it is. You talk about baseball and guys that have a low average right now, like Carlos Correa for the Minnesota Twins is one of the best 5-6 players in all of baseball. He's batting 180. Does that matter? No. But if he's batting 180 in July after 300 more plate appearances, that's a problem. Christian Watson just didn't have the plate appearances because North Dakota State won every game by 30.
That's what they do. So that's the Christian Watson section of this show that I was trying to avoid. So thank you.
It wasn't my fault. It came up in the comments.
Yeah. So thank you, Iowa Joe, for going anything on that. We'll see what happens tomorrow night. It'll be the first round of the draft.
How did this even happen?
That's okay. I'm not
I
going to
told
ask
Ross
you guys.
10, 15 minutes. Here we are 45 minutes later.
Yeah, that's why I said
you and I are gonna have words.
Yeah, I'm not going to ask you guys for predictions for tomorrow night. I'm just going to say sit back, relax, enjoy the show. Packer Report tomorrow. We'll have plenty of content coming out. I have a big board, if that's what you guys want to call it, something I did. I've done it each of the last couple of years. It'll come out over there tomorrow. It's A, B, and C picks. So, for example, I know like the first year that I did it that Joe Burrow is not going to be available when the Packers are on the clock. But if he did, that would be an A pick. They took Jordan Love that year, and I had Jordan Love rated as a C pick. Shout out Jacob Morley for that. So there's all of those things. I have that tomorrow for every single position for what would be an A pick, what would be a B pick, and what would be a C pick. So looking forward to that. Ross has got his stuff. You have instant reaction over at Pack Report. You have instant reaction stuff here. Tomorrow night, we have boots on the ground. Joe Arrigo, MJ Hurley, and a couple other people will be in Las Vegas after the Packers make their pick and having a lot of fun that way and getting some stuff going there. And Jacob Morley and I will be back next week to break down the Packers taking whoever it is they take and breaking down this 2022 draft class. I do. And like I said, I can promise you guys this, whoever Green Bay takes, and they could come out tomorrow with Lewis Seen and Jordan Davis, just to throw two names out there. And there will be some weeping and gnashing of teeth when it comes to the receiver room and all that stuff. And I understand that to some degree. I can promise you this draft is going to be infinitely more enjoyable than last year's was. Just flat out. The quarterback isn't taking a dump on the organization and saying, I don't want to be here anymore. And you don't have to go through that for an entire weekend. So praise be to whoever it is that deserves to be praised for that. But until next time, follow me on Twitter. I'm at Jacob Westorf. You can follow Ross. He's at Ross Uglum. And Jake is at Jacob Morley. We're out of here. Get your sleep going so Draft Santa could come into stuff some good stuff into your stocking. See you guys next week.